We want to bring the events that are happening in the world from a biblical perspective and also a prophetic perspective of the United States, so that you and I can understand no one can stand going on here. And what I want to talk about this week is involved in running for president of the United States, and they can't stand her. Remember what the Lord said, when you see all these things begin to happen, look up, lift up your heads, for your redemption draws near. Hey everybody, did you get a chance to watch the crazy halftime show at the Super Bowl? It was insane. And I want to talk to you today about that, because what we are witnessing at the Super Bowl halftime show, it's not accidental. It was not neutral. It's not just entertainment. It's not artistic expression. It is a message to everyone watching. And why does this matter? Well, it's because the culture is celebrating something that it should avoid. See, guys, what a society celebrates reveals what it worships. And what it puts on its largest platform, which is the Super Bowl, right? The halftime show. It's the most watched program of the entire year, nothing comes close. Nothing comes close to the NFL Super Bowl. Nothing. But when they platform a guy like Bad Bunny and have that halftime show, they're wanting to normalize things. And what do they want to normalize? Well, I'm going to go through that in just a bit, because it also lends itself towards us understanding culturally what's happening, but also understanding prophetically what's happening. Again, when you place something, a message like that, in front of children and families and an entire nation, an entire world that is watching this, well, you're discipling, you're evangelizing. Whether you admit it or not, you're sending a message, and that's what it was about. See, the Super Bowl is not just a football game. It's beyond that anymore. It is selling something. Again, it's the largest shared cultural moment, not only in America, but around the world. And again, what happened on that stage at the halftime show is a snapshot of civilization in a moral freefall. I call it slouching towards Sodom. Again, where did I get that phrase, slouching towards Sodom? Well, it comes from the biblical pattern we see in Genesis. Sodom and Gomorrah did not collapse overnight. It normalized itself into judgment. And eventually, as you know, God judged it. Lot did not wake up one day living in Sodom. It was a progression of him moving into it. Remember, he pitched his tent toward it at first. Then he moved closer and moved closer. And then by the time you see him in Sodom, he sat at the gate, which means he became an elder or something like that. He was like some type of city official, maybe the mayor. But how do you go from pitching your tent toward Sodom, moving toward it, and then eventually having some official position? Well, it happens gradually over time. And Lot just kept opening the door and accepting more and more and more. And that's what's happened to our culture. People are like Lot. They just keep letting it happen and absorbing more of Sodom and Gomorrah into their own lives. And so many of them that watched the halftime show probably didn't even realize what messaging was being sent, because they've opened the door already to the messaging, and they've accepted it to begin with. But anyway, Lot raised his family inside of the culture, right? And that culture, God had already condemned. And so what you have to understand about Genesis when you're looking at that, it's not just history, it's a warning. And remember, Jesus even gave a warning saying the last days would be like the days of Lot, right? He mentioned that. And so Romans 1 tells us when a culture suppresses the truth, or even an individual suppresses the truth, God does not immediately destroy that civilization or that person. What does he do? He gives them over to it. He hands them over to their desires. And that's pretty scary. And those desires, if you read Romans 1, begin to dominate not just their private life, but their public life, right? And if you read Romans 1:24, it says God gave them up to uncleanness and the lust of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves. So that's not a private sin. It goes public. It becomes a public celebration. And so that's what we're talking about. So the NFL then, you have to understand this, it's not simply about football. Roger Goodell is not just simply about football. The owners that are the accountability for Roger Goodell, it's not just about football for them. It's about money, no doubt about that, but it's a cultural gatekeeper. That's what the NFL is. It was, when it first started, an American institution. It was built on American values, American culture, and that American culture is a Judeo-Christian culture background, and it shared a national identity. Well, that's how it started, but that's not how it is today. It is no longer the case for the NFL. The NFL, if you've studied the NFL any time, you will notice that it has globalistic values. It wants to go global. It wants to reach the entire world. Obviously, because of money, it wants to become a billion, just make more and more billions of dollars. I get that from a monetary standpoint. But in order to do that, they have to adopt the world's values. If it's going to branch out and reach the world, they have to adopt the world's values. And that's what it's done in order to achieve their global ends. And that's why this halftime show matters. So when the NFL places an international performer like Bad Bunny, and I think he was Puerto Rican, and they put an international guy on an American stage, they are not just booking a musician. They are endorsing a message. They are declaring what they believe represents the NFL moving forward in its globalistic aspirations. They are pushing that globalistic message, okay? So this year, that message was very explicit. The NFL has pushed America and the West, which represents Judeo-Christian values, off to the side and is appealing to a global market that is antithetical to Judeo-Christian values. That's why they brought in Bad Bunny. The performer that was chosen fits that messaging. The guy in his personal life or public life wears dresses sometimes. This guy hates America. The guy is off the chart woke, okay? He's pro-LGBT. He is anti-ICE, which tells you his stance on the globalist agenda of the great replacement of Western society through illegal immigration. As you guys know, globalists want illegal immigration, not just for political reasons for votes, but for the replacement of Western society to collapse it and get it away from Judeo-Christian society and to turn it to a globalistic society where people are more loyal to global entities rather than their own sovereign nation. And that's what you do. You divide and conquer through illegal immigration. All you have to do is look at what's happening in Europe, okay, with the Islamic immigration that will take over Europe in the next 10 to 15 years. In the next 10 to 15 years, most of the European nations will be Islamic as a majority. And that's part of the globalist agenda, okay? So if that's part of your globalist agenda is to get rid of national sovereignty, replace Judeo-Christian Western society with a globalist agenda, you do it by pushing entertainment. That's one of the avenues. And again, what did the NFL try to do with their show? Impose a globalist worldview on an entire nation during its most watched broadcast. So the political messaging was disguised as entertainment. That's what you have to see through. One of the most obvious signals was linguistic, okay? So the halftime performance was entirely in Spanish. Now, if you don't know Spanish, you don't even know what he was singing or what he has said. That's not accidental. So let's talk about the NFL or football as an American phenomenon. English is the official language of the United States. It's spoken by roughly 247 million Americans, okay? So the majority of the population. Spanish is spoken about approximately 43 million, okay? So if you're going to do any entertainment by just the sheer numbers as a business, you're going to do things in English because that's the majority of your population that watches the Super Bowl. That's just business. That's what you would do. If I was in France and everybody speaks French, I'm going to do a program in French because the majority of people speak French. Or if I'm in Japan and everyone speaks Japanese, I am not going to do a program in English. That's just business. But when a business like the NFL does it in Spanish against the majority population who watches the program, and by the way, English is the international language across the board. There's no doubt about that. It is the business language across the board. You cannot do business unless you know English. And by the way, if you're a pilot, no matter what country you're from, the international language for all pilots is English. You must know English if you're going to fly, if you're a pilot. So anyway, they decided to do it in Spanish. So what is that? It's sending a message. It's sending a message. And I don't care if it's Spanish, I don't care if it's Russian, I don't care if it's Chinese, I don't care if it's whatever. When you do a halftime show performed entirely in a foreign language, paired with foreign flags on stage, I'm sorry, that's not diversity, that is a statement. It says America no longer has a share in the cultural center. It says the old norms of the West, Judeo-Christian values, are being replaced by globalism. It says to the host nation, America, hey, America and the West, you must adapt. And you're not even being represented anymore. Well, for those who are woke and say, we want to include everybody, the funny thing is, that was not inclusion, that was displacement of the host nation. So now let's move to the morality of the issue. Let's move to the sexualization and the moral messaging of it. So these performances that you saw at halftime by Bad Bunny and the host of people that were performing included simulated sexual behavior. There was guys pretending to have sex with the women on as they're moving through the different groups. You had to freeze it to see it, but it was there. Then you also had same-sex homosexual grinding on stage, and that was there too. It had explicit sexual gestures by Bad Bunny himself. He kept grabbing his crotch like Michael Jackson over and over and over again. And again, this is on public broadcast television during a family event. Again, Scripture is very clear. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. Isaiah 5:20. Romans 1 describes a culture where sexual disorder is not hidden but celebrated. It says that such acts done openly and those who practice them give approval to others who do the same. Well, that's exactly what we witnessed. That's not artistic ambiguity. It was intentional provocation. That's what it was about. It was in your face, like it or not. We're going to bump and grind whether you like it or not. And then Bad Bunny sang some of his songs. Now, they sang his songs, and some of the lyrics he sang were the cleaner lyrics of the songs he sang. But if you look on some of those songs that he sang, and you look at the entire lyrics, and again, the lyrics weren't sung at the Super Bowl, but if you are telling people we want to platform this guy, here's some of the songs he sings, if you go and buy his songs, they are the most outrageous, off-the-chart, sexualized songs you have ever heard. I mean, it's beyond parental warnings. It's like XXX in his songs. One of the songs referenced in the set at the Super Bowl, and again, he didn't sing the explicit lyrics, he sang the tamed down lyrics of it, was Safaria. It's a Puerto Rican slang that refers to debauchery. And again, while most of these lyrics were not sung on air, if you go to the songs, they're there. And by the way, the performances visually communicated what the lyrics described, even though he didn't sing the lyrics. So when they're bumping and grinding, doing simulated sex acts. That's what those songs are about that he sings. I looked at the lyrics today, and I can't even repeat them back to you. They're so vile. It is like watching, it's just, I don't know what to say about them. It talks about lusting after female parts. It talks about oral sex. It talks about getting drunk, intercourse in multiple ways. It's just off the chain, man. And so this obviously matters to God, because God judges not only the words, but he judges the presentation, the intent, and the influence, right? So even if you say, well, Bad Bunny didn't say any of that stuff, I know, but if you influence through that and you go buy his songs and you influencing teenagers to go buy his albums, that's what's on the albums. That's what's on the songs. And children are watching. Families are watching. So the message is clear. The NFL or globalism says sexual restraint is outdated. That's why we have to get rid of the Judeo-Christian ethic. It's outdated. Moral boundaries are oppressive to them. Shame, well, there's no such thing as shame in their eyes. It's just a social construct that comes from Christianity. Dude, all of that is Sodom language, right? It's woke mantra. And then at the end of the performance, the artist stood by, flanked by foreign flags in front of a billboard that read, "The only thing powerful than hate is love." Oh, that sounds so wonderful. That sounds so noble. But let me ask a critical question. Who, Bad Bunny, defines love? Well, according to Bad Bunny, he defines love as having sex with whoever and whenever you want. That's how they define love. And that's how the globalists define love. Have sex with whoever and whenever you want, right? There shouldn't be no restraints on your love. And furthermore, the NFL and Bad Bunny, he defines love as a borderless world, right? This is modern progressive ideology. It's wokeism. And when they talk about love, they're not talking about the kind of love that you and I are talking about. Not a biblical love, that's for sure. It's a love based on emotions and lust without truth. That's the love they're talking about. Love in the Bible has truth with the guardrails around it. It has repentance involved. It has staying within the morality that God defines. Their version of love is neutrality. There's nothing to give it any guardrails. And Scripture says only God can define love, not Bad Bunny, not the NFL, not wokeism, because God is love, and God defines love by His holiness and His truth. Biblical love does not celebrate what destroys people. Bad Bunny and the NFL are celebrating that which destroys people. Biblical love calls people out of darkness into light. Bad Bunny is darkness and calling people to darkness. So what you saw was not love. It's moral confusion, and it's baptized by their emotion and sentiment. But let's go further. Let's talk about the globalism and the erasure of national identity embedded in the performance. Okay, so this halftime show fits into a larger pattern. So borders are framed as immoral. National identity is treated as outdated. Sovereignty is portrayed as hateful. Patriotism is portrayed as racist. This is the same ideology behind the idea of a borderless world that comes straight out of the World Economic Forum or straight out of the UN. It is a replacement of liberty with managed dependence on global institutions. And again, this is not just Roger Goodell. It is the entire owners of the NFL. It is the corporate partners. It is the media networks all pushing this narrative. So, for instance, let's turn how the globalists want to control our money. Remember what they said. You will own nothing and be happy. And you're like, well, what are you bringing this up as far as the NFL is concerned? Well, let me give you an example of the money and how it went down. Okay? So Klaus Schwab in the whole World Economic Forum says, you will own nothing and be happy. So let me expose the moral inversion of our system of economics from the Super Bowl. So get this. After the Super Bowl, players from the Seattle Seahawks who won the Super Bowl, including Sam Darnold, the quarterback, they all became subject to California's so-called jock tax. Yeah, California has a jock tax. Can you believe that? Because the game was played in Santa Clara, California, it taxed out-of-state players based on, quote-unquote, duty days. Well, what do you mean, duty days? Well, that includes all their time practicing, traveling, and game day. The Seattle Seahawks and the Patriots were in California for 7 days. So they're going to be taxed on how long they were here and how much they won in bonuses for winning the Super Bowl. So check this out. Sam Darnold earned $178,000 for winning the Super Bowl. Get this, because of California's tax structure and his $105 million contract, he owes an estimated $249,000 in state taxes to California for coming here for 7 days and winning the Super Bowl. This means he lost money for winning the Super Bowl. After taxes, Sam Darnold faces a net loss of approximately $71,000 for playing the Super Bowl here in California. Let that sink in. When Klaus Schwab said, you'll own nothing and be happy, that's what we're talking about. That's right out of California. That's out of the globalist playbook. The same system that preaches equity confiscates earnings. The same globalist ideology that claims it cares about workers penalizes achievement. The same globalist culture that celebrates excess, sexuality, right, punishes productivity. That's not justice. That's exploitation, guys. And this matches that phrase, you will own nothing and be happy. Thank you very much, Sam Darnold, for playing the Super Bowl and winning it. You now owe California $71,000. You're in the hole now for $71,000. All that money you won, all your earnings, gone. Gone. Why does this matter? Well, biblically it's wrong, but prophetically, this is where things are going. And prophetically, this culture, this civilization is heading for judgment. The world is heading for judgment. We call it the 7-year tribulation. Society, culture, civilization, they have adopted the values of the Whore of Babylon. And Bad Bunny represents all of that. The whole halftime show represents the Whore of Babylon. And let me tell you something you already know. It's not coming back. It's proving why it deserves God's judgment. The Super Bowl halftime show proved that our civilization deserves judgment. And every day we see this lawless system on display, whether you're talking about Minnesota, where you're talking about Islamic takeovers, whether you're talking about the anti-Semitism on Israel, whether you're talking about the apostasy of the church. It's all going in a direction that's not coming back. Now, it's part of that lawless system, and it's on display. And God is going to judge it. That's where it's going. I hope people from within the system get saved out of it. That's your only escape, is you got to get saved. But you already know what Messiah said about that. Narrow is the path, and few who find it. Broad is the road of destruction, and many who find it. And here's the thing. What can we do? What can we do while we're here, while we're supposed to occupy? Well, does it mean we throw up our hands and put on the white sheets and go sit on the rooftop and wait for Jesus to come back? No, you're supposed to be doing work. What you and I are supposed to do is not only evangelize, but create alternatives. What do you mean? Well, as an example, I like what Turning Point did by offering an alternative halftime show. That's thinking. That's what we're supposed to be doing. We don't just throw our hands up in the air and surrender to this saying there's nothing we can do. We are to create alternatives. They provided an alternative halftime show because they refused to accept the cultural coercion. And same with us. I'm not going to sit there and be brainwashed and coerced by the NFL, by their halftime show. So let's come up with healthy alternatives to what the society is doing. You know, we have to have our own trusted resources for news. You know that. Can you trust the talking heads on the alphabet media? Can you trust the talking heads to tell you the truth? The number one podcasters are not trustable. They're not giving you truth. They're giving you conspiracy theories. They're filling people's heads with nonsense. And these people don't know the Bible. They're podcasters. That's all they are, talking heads. Make sure you're following the right people to get the right information. That's the alternatives, right? Let's talk about schools. What do we do with the corrupt system of schools? Well, do some alternatives. At Rock Harbor, we started a private school. Maybe you put your kid in a private school. Maybe you homeschool. I don't know. But you find alternatives. You just don't let someone sit there and be brainwashed to death and create a Marxist of your child. Let's talk about college. Sometimes your kid has to go to college because of the particular career they're involved in. I get it. You know, if you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, or whatever, a nurse, or whatever, an engineer requires education. But if I'm just going to college to get the underwater basket weaving degree, I think you would be better off sending your kid to a trade school because you're wasting your time. They're going to take classes like women's liberation theology and stuff like that, and weird classes like that, which is going to brainwash them into a raging woke Marxist. Is that what I want to pay for? Maybe my kid would be better off learning a trade, maybe being an auto mechanic or going into the military or maybe being a plumber or something like that because they probably can make more money doing the trades. And no wonder why do the UC systems discourage that? Why do the public school systems take out trades? Because they didn't want them. They wanted them to be part of a system that was part of indoctrination. So they removed the trades. They removed auto shop. They removed wood shop. They removed welding. They removed all those trades. Homemaking. They removed all of those. Because why? They wanted indoctrination. So we got to come up with alternatives, man. We need Christians who will run for office. That's an alternative. Are you sick of the politicians being leftists? Well, then some Christians need to run for office. Getting on school boards, stuff like that. That's creating alternatives. So that's what we're talking about. We're in the world, but we're not of it. And like Jesus said about rabbinic Judaism or the Mishnah, he said, no one puts a piece of cloth, a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment. For the patch pulls away the garment and the tear is made worse. And he says, nor do they put new wine into old wineskins or else the wineskins break. The wine is spilled and the wineskins are ruined. But they put new wine into new wineskins and both are preserved. Now, the original context of that was he's saying, look, I'm not here to patch up Mishnaic Judaism. We're not here to fix it and reform it. It's unfixable. What I am bringing to you is something brand new, the new covenant. And the new covenant cannot fit into rabbinic Judaism. So I'm not here to patch things up and reform it. I'm here to do away with that, not the Mosaic law, but the Mishnah, the rejection of the man-made rules of the oral law, because I'm creating the new covenant. Okay. That's the original intent of it, but in principle, what is he saying? There's a principle that can derive from it. When the system is unfixable, you create an alternative. That's the idea. So, do I think the NFL is going to reform? Do I think writing a letter to Roger Goodell and he's going to get flooded by letters and say, you know what, boy, I really messed that up on this one, boy. I'll fix it next time, and I'll bring a wholesome act next year. You think he's going to do that? No, it's beyond. We're not here to patch up the NFL. We're not here to patch up Roger Goodell. We're not here to reform the owner's mindset. That's not going to happen. It's done. They're not coming back. So what you should expect from every NFL halftime is a whole series of Bad Bunnies over and over and over again. We have to create alternatives. And, God bless TP USA for creating an alternative. But you have to take that in principle and do that in our own lives. That's the idea. God judged Sodom not merely for private immorality, but for public arrogance, for sexual corruption, and the disdain for righteousness, right? That's what he did, and that's what they were doing. And right now, America has checked off every box that brought judgment to Sodom and Gomorrah. Public indecency is normalized, truth is replaced with slogans, national identity is dismantled, economic punishment for success, children exposed to sexual confusion, and yet God is patient. But that patience is not permission. The Super Bowl halftime show was not just bad taste, it is a moral declaration. It said, this is who we are now as a society, and they shoved it in everyone's face. So the church has got to answer. Not with rage, not with fear, but with truth. We must raise our children differently. We must teach them discernment. Refuse to be disciplined by the screens anymore or halftime shows. Refuse to bow down to cultural intimidation. And above all, we must preach the whole counsel of God. Because the only thing more powerful than the NFL and the hate it's spewing, or the Bad Bunny messaging that was going on, the only thing more powerful than that is truth, repentance, redemption, and the transforming power of Jesus Christ. This is the message America needs. They need Jesus. And that is the message the church must never stop proclaiming.